Hello, everyone. This is SOS from home. I'm your host, Catherine Book, here with my co host, Diego Robbins. Sadly, Michael could not be here today, but it's my pleasure to welcome Aurora Nichols and Zoe Para, two fellow SOS volunteers who have traveled the world on SOS trips and are now in college. Aurora, Zoe, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Happy to
We're,
be here.
we're so glad you're here. So, to start off, can you briefly describe what your lives were like prior to you joining SOS?
Aurora, you wanna
Yeah,
pick
I
up
can.
on that?
Yeah, I can go first. So prior to SOS, um, I I was not in a great place. I was struggling in school. I was struggling in my personal life. Um, I was I was having trouble with everything. Um, and then I found SOS, and it kind of pointed me in the right direction. It showed me where I wanted to go in life. Before I found SOS and had the chance to travel and find my passion, I had chosen a career based off of money and just something that I thought I should do, but something that never made me happy. It never made me want to get up in the mornings and go to school and enjoy it and learn. And then I had the chance to travel with SOS and do all of the different community service, and I realized my passion and where I wanted to go.
That's great. Zoe?
Before SOS and before the influence of a great community, I was very much an at-risk kid. I was not really into school much. I didn't see how it could benefit my current situation. I wasn't really a forward thinker or someone that thought about the future in a very bright way. Um, there was just no way of convincing me I could change my situation from where it was at. So I just thought, might as well indulge in what I have right now, which definitely is not the right mindset. But after I started seeking help and asking for help around me, um, and joining SOS, I had a complete turnaround, and I found people that helped me become a better me, and yeah, it's all been uphill since I got into SOS.
Yeah, that's really great how SOS was able to pull both of you out of the cringe situations that you had. But I would like to know, how did you learn about SOS? Where did that first come up in your life?
I guess I can go keep with the theme. So I learned about SOS from another teacher who was involved at the time. Um, she was telling me about an opportunity that was happening. The opportunity was going to China with SOS. She knew my past. She knew that I had grown up in a small town. I had had all different issues. And I had never, growing up in a small town, I had never thought about the outside of basically my town. And then when I moved to San Antonio, outside of San Antonio, I rarely traveled outside of Texas. And so the international world was very foreign to me in all senses of the word. It wasn't something I thought about, it wasn't something I knew about. And so she was like, Aurora, you got to do this. And I was like, I don't know that that's not for me. Like, that's not something I can do. And she was like, yeah, no, it is. And so I did. She introduced me to Mr. Smandy and was really the pushing factor for me to join SOS.
Great.
Uh,
Zoe?
I'm sorry, I was just like so into what she was saying. The question was, how did I hear about SOS?
Yes. How did you hear about SOS?
So I hope he edits that out. um, uh, I, along with y'all, went to school at Lee, where the STEM program is located. When Mr. Samandi first started teaching, I'm pretty sure it was also my freshman year of high school. Aurora, was he there when you
No,
first
he
got
wasn't.
there?
No, we had a different geography teacher. He came my sophomore year, your freshman year.
Okay, so yeah, it was my freshman year that Mr. Samandi started teaching at Lee. And him and Miss Schlichting well, most of the teachers there were really into the idea of SOS and really liked spreading out like around the message of we're doing a diaper drive or we're going to the food bank or we're doing this. Like there was always notifications, there's always posters, there's always um, messages before class about what SOS was. And I honestly didn't really take much of an interest of it until Mr. Samandi himself and I started to build up a better interpersonal relationship, to the point where I could care about something like that. Because before that, I didn't care about what was going on with me, let alone anyone or anything else. Um, and it's not really because I was a bad person, but because of all the things that I was caught up in at the moment. There was just no time to think about positivity or giving things to other people when I didn't really have myself. Um, but when Mr. Samandi started not only talking about how giving could help you feel better, but how even just giving a little bit can completely change your life, and that's exactly what happened. When I got involved, it was because he pushed me because he said this will be good for you, and this not only is going to be good for you, but this is going to be good for everyone else around you and the community because you're going to be making a good impact on them. So yeah, that's how I learned about SOS. Mr. Samandi just slowly talking the message into me.
Wow. I think, yeah, with the grassroots organization, like SOS, that Mr. Samani started in his classroom, a lot of the time, word of mouth is the way that it spreads, like just now, we have a marketing person, but, back then it was really just like a ragtag team of teachers and students that were sort of helping to grow it at Lee, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, so you guys have both been on trips with SOS. Can you guys talk about, the trips that you've been on and maybe a few memorable experiences?
Yeah, so I've been on two international trips with SOS and then two domestic ones. The first trip I went to was China in 2016. I had to look at the dates actually to remind myself of the year that it happened. It was 2016. I was it was right after my junior year. It was the summer of my junior year, going in to be a senior, and it was the first time I'd ever traveled abroad. It was a 13-hour flight. I want to say 12-hour flight. It was a very long flight. And the longest flight I had been on was probably like 2 hours, so it was quite an experience.
Uh, yeah, that's quite a jump.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. I had taken car rides that were really long, but I had never been on a plane um, for that long. But yeah, it was an incredible experience, and I'll never quite forget stepping. We landed in Beijing, and I'll never forget we were on the tarmac. We had to take like one of the little buses back to the actual airport, and it was so weird because like the sun was coming up, but it was like 4 in the morning, and I don't remember what time it was, but it was like a weird time for the sun to be coming up. But it was just incredible because I was like, yes, this is like nothing had even happened. I was just staring at concrete in the sky, but my brain was like, "Yep, this is where you're meant to be." And it was just like a life changing experience. And then the second trip what I did was a couple days after we got back from China, actually, we went to DC for the Sister Cities International, which Zoe was on with us. And really the first time I connected with Zoe. Um, but that was incredible, and that's where I realized that I wanted to not only do international work, I wanted to do international politics. Before that, like being in STEM, earlier I mentioned that I had just kind of chosen a career path. I wanted to be a psychologist uh, for no real reason other than my mom is in the medical field. Like, they was just kind of, I threw a dart at something and picked it. But I went to China and I found my passion. I was like, wow, culture, people, language, like this whole new experience. And then doing the Sister Cities International, we did a simulation pretty much where we had to uh, figure out something with nuclear weapons or nuclear power between all these different countries, and it just like clicked in my brain. I was like, wow, negotiations, conflict, like analysis and resolution. It was like, this is my jam pretty much. um, and that's what made me decide I wanted to do international politics. And then we went to Dominican Republic in March of 2017 for a week, and that was incredible. Um, it really solidified like what I wanted to do in life. It really solidified that I wanted to, in fact, go to college and have a life. Um, and then last summer, I went on another Sister Cities International trip, Sister Cities International with Zoe, but we were chaperones this time, and that was an incredible experience as well.
Sounds like you've really got the full SOS experience. You've been on ambassador trips, you've been on Sister Cities trips. Like, that's incredible. So what about you, Zoe? What trips have you been on?
Um, the first SOS trip I ever had the pleasure of going on was the England and France 2016 trip.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
I went on that trip.
yeah, it was where I first met Diego. He was so tiny and so adorable,
Thank you.
and super smart. I was like, wow, this 4-year-old talks really well.
I
Um,
remember that.
yeah, and the second SOS trip I took was the Australia New Zealand. I met Catherine on that trip.
Yeah.
Um, then the next year it was Japan. Catherine went on that
Woo.
trip as well.
Again.
Um, England, France, Australia, Zealand, Japan,
There's
Germany.
one more. There's one more that we've been on together.
Germany, right?
Yeah, Germany.
Okay. So yeah, those are the SOS trips that I've been on. And there's a lot of repeat travelers, as like me, Catherine, Diego, Aurora. And when you are around those people on those trips, you develop these unique experiences that you can't really share with anybody else, because you've traveled the world with this person, this way across the Atlantic and that way over the Pacific. So it's really really awesome. You get to build up these strong connections and relationships with people just through traveling that way.
I think
But yeah,
the
those are.
cool thing about SOS is like the meeting new people and like like I mean on the trips, right? Like you'll be at the airport and not know like half the kids there, and then like by the time you get on the flight, like you have like 15 new friends.
Yep.
Yeah. And like it's crazy because all these kids live in the same city as you and you'd like never see them. And then you have to go like halfway across the world just to get to some like know someone from another school.
Some of
Yeah,
them go to
But
the same school as you.
that's
Like,
true. That's true actually.
I met new people who were in my grade in my school on the China trip, and I was like, wow, I've been here for 3 years and I don't think I've ever seen you. And we had basically the same people in our classes, and I was like, this is wild. How have I never met you before?
Yeah. On the Sister Cities trip to Virginia Beach, I'm not sure if anybody went on that here,
Mm-mm.
but does anybody know Michaela Serwacki?
Yes.
Yeah.
She went to
I had
DC with us.
Yeah, so she went to DC with us, but I had never. ever talked to her for longer than like 5 minutes before the Virginia Beach trip. And I was like, wow, I've been going to school with you since middle school. I don't know why we never talked before, but after that, we were like, really, it was really cool. Just like meeting new people, but also people that you've been to school with that you didn't know you could mesh with.
Hmm.
Like me and
Oh yeah,
Zoe.
definitely. I think it's also funny the comment you made earlier on how like some kid like like you and me specifically have traveled across both the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, which
Yeah,
I never even thought about that
we have
before.
been
So
around
that's
the world on both sides.
yeah, that's crazy. Um, well, you two have been obviously on many trips as students, but you've also done the chaperone side of it. So, what was the different experience with that?
Yeah, being a chaperone, it you really get to see like the behind the scenes. Like as a kid going on these trips or as a participant going on these trips, you don't think about all the work that goes into it really. You're just like, wow, look at these cool things. Wow, look at all that we're doing. Like it's just so amazing. And being a chaperone is the same thing, but it really puts into perspective how much work and effort people put into making these things happen, how much effort and work Mr. Samandi puts into making these things happen, how the rest of the team puts in the effort, and it's a really humbling experience for me. Being a chaperone, being on the team of SOS now, it's like when I went to China, I had no idea that how much work went into it until my senior year. I was talking with Mr. Smandy. I was like a quote unquote intern. Um, and like we were doing things. What, Zoe?
No, I was gonna say, what's with the quote unquote? Yo, we were both interns.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I was technically his student, his teacher's assistant, student assistant. I don't know what they call them anymore. I was
Oh,
his
you're
student
talking about your
aide.
senior year. Your senior year.
Yeah, my senior year of high school. I
Yeah,
was his student aide.
yeah, my senior year of high school is when the actual internship was. So that's why I got it mixed up. My
Yeah. No, no, it's okay. I was more of like a SOS intern than a student aide. Oops. Um, but yeah, so like being a chaperone put the sister cities specifically into perspective because that trip, while amazing, was not the most organized, and so it was it was a new experience that was really kind of difficult, because there was just so much unknown on my part because I had never been a chaperone, and then because of the way that that specific event was set up. But I enjoyed being a chaperone, and I would love to chaperone another trip if that made any sense at all.
Oh, that makes sense. It seems a mix. Like I mean, my mom has also been a chaperone on these trips. She's never been, I mean, she is a traveler, but she was never like a student. And she describes it as like a mix of like tons of fun and but like at some times like really stressful. Like I remember when we were in England and France, we were running late to go ride on the like London Eye, and
Oh man,
remember that? That was like,
yeah,
like
I
a big deal.
do.
Everyone wanted to do that, and we were like across town, and like there was no bus, so we had to like sprint across town. My mom's a nurse, and like there are these girls having like asthma attacks because like they're running,
I
and like
distinctively remember. I was that the same day we did the Globe Theater.
yes, that was a crazy day.
That was an insane day.
Yeah, we landed with because nobody slept on the flight. 'Cause I remember Deadpool had just come out, so we all watched Deadpool on the plane. Like a,
None of the kids that didn't care slept on the flight. Excuse
that's
you.
it's
I got plenty of sleep on the flight.
I absolutely did not sleep. And so we landed I went there, me and my best friend Esteban, we both got there with like zero sleep, and so we had been awake for probably like I don't know, 18 to something hours. And we land and then we all go to the Globe Theater, which was really fun, but it's like you stand up for 3 hours. And so we were starting to
Yeah,
get
I've heard stories about
so
that.
that was kind of crazy. And then to top like so then we're done with that and it's only like 11 in the morning. And so then, that night we're sprinting across town to get to the London Eye, and all the chaperones are freaking out because like they think half the kids are dying. But
It was
like
well worth it.
it was really well worth it. We were all like, I remember Esteban and I just like crying on like the our hotel because we were so tired when
Y'all
we were
cried.
because like we were trying like not like because we were sad, but because like we were both trying to fall asleep and like our moms kept making us stay awake. And I remember we were like, sure, oh, we want to go to sleep, and we started crying. It was, oh
Oh
my
my
gosh,
god.
So
thank
to tie this into the whole student versus chaperone thing, as a student, when you go on these trips, you're like, oh my God, this is exhausting. We're constantly doing something. There's never a moment where we're not doing something. But then when you become the chaperone, it's like, oh wow, this is what I have to do to make this happen so that we can keep doing these things. It turns into, wow, this is exhausting but fun, to this is exhausting but they need to have fun. And
Oh
all
my god, yes.
enjoying doing this.
yeah, like you have to put up a front, like pretend like you're unfazed. That takes a lot.
Yeah, because like
It does.
yes, for the Zoe, do you remember for the Sister Cities trip last summer? We were doing room checks 5 in the morning. We were doing room checks at 1 at night. So like there was no sleep happening.
And also,
Like,
you're the bad guy now. Like, hey
oh my
guys,
god,
I'm just
yes.
like you. Like, I just want to make sure everyone's being safe. I'm not trying to cramp your style.
I
But
remember you on the Germany trip. You did that so many times, and like it makes sense because like obviously you're a chaperone, and like you need to get the rein on like some of these kids, but like
It's
as
it's
like
a
a yeah
yeah, no,
it's
I definitely know that there were some times where people were like, really, but also you gotta think about it from our perspective of
yeah.
first time doing this. First of all, we are in a completely different country with a completely different language. Um, the number one thing is safety, and so I would rather be over over specific about something than under, and then something happen and we're halfway across the world from family. But
Hmm.
yeah, it takes
even
a
in
lot of patience.
Houston.
Huh?
Even in
Yeah.
Houston, like it's safety is like the first thought in your head. And so like as a chaperone, you're battling not only like, okay, I have to be the adult in this situation, but at the same time, like I was 20 on that. Like I was 20. Like these kids are 18, 17, and I'm 20. I'm only 2 years older than them, and Zoe's a year younger than me almost. And so like it's hard to reconcile that as well, because you still have that teenage mindset, but at the same time you have to like kick that to the curb and be like, okay, I'm the adult in this situation despite the fact that these are also mini adults. Like I have to be the adult here, and
Yeah,
it's
well,
tough.
Also, a lot of them kind of forgot that, hey, it wasn't just our decision. Like, we weren't just picked out of a hat to be chaperone. Like, we were appointed this. Like,
Right.
there was a lot of thought that went into this thing. Um, I'm a little salty about it. Never mind.
I know. It's a tough
well,
experience.
yeah,
I
well,
would do it again in
both
a
of you
heartbeat,
did.
though.
I think both of you did like a great job. Like Aurora, I wasn't on any trips that you actually chaperoned, but I can say from like knowing you that you two did like a great job. And like as a student, when you do that, like the little switch, like from okay, I'm barely 20 years old and I'm here, and then to the suddenly I'm an adult. It's like as as a traveler, like Zoe, I remember like you would do that, and I'd be like, oh my god, she's like so put together.
Okay, Diego, do you remember, or do you remember Catherine on the Germany trip, the homeless guy that came up to some of the kids in the train station?
Yes,
Okay, so
yeah,
immediately, yeah, I understand. There was no immediate danger, but also
hmm,
these are my kids, but they're not my kids, and I am afraid right now. That was
yeah,
like, I need to make sure that these guys are okay, and if something goes down, I need to make sure that I'm gonna be the one getting whatever is coming. But
hmm,
I don't know how to convey that kind of message in 3 seconds when
Yeah, you
trying to
can't.
make sure these kids are staying safe. So that was also super stressful. But again, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Um, Also, something that SOS has made me realize I really do care about other people. And I know that might sound like silly, but coming from
That's
where
a good
I
point.
come from, it's you take care of yourself, you look after yourself. But
Yeah.
after, getting attached to some of the people here and also just genuinely caring about the organization and the people participating, you start like, oh, this is a family. I need to make sure everything runs smoothly so we have a good time and that we're all safe.
It's a second family. SOS can become your second family or honestly your first. I know people where SOS became their real first family
Yep.
because it was just it clicked for them. It clicked for me too. SOS became my second family and it just clicks.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like I know like, the relationship that like Zoe and my mom and I like built on like the England and France trip. I like, like sparked like a like friendship. Like, Zoe came over to our house and like carved pumpkins, and then we went
Uh,
to watch a really scary shark movie.
we did.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, we went to the movie theaters and we watched
that
the
was
Meg or
horrible.
something.
That was stupid.
um, other cool people I met on the England and France trip. Miss Ashley Anderson, shout out. She's like super awesome English teacher and person. But also the Zavalas
Yeah, I was
are
gonna say, cheers to
amazing
all of us.
family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Esteban is a little salty. I still love all of them to death. Mr. and Mrs. Zavala have, but I think it was either my junior year of high school or beginning of senior. They drove me to and from school with their family, and I don't know how I would have gotten to school without them. So they were a huge help.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. Well, I know you guys have talked a lot about, and Aurora sort of mentioned this earlier, how your guys' career outlooks have changed based off of these SOS trips. So maybe, could you guys go into a little more detail about what specifically these trips, how they shifted your perspective, and maybe if there's like an exact moment that you remember thinking, man, I don't want to be this anymore. I want to do that.
Oh yeah, I remember mine. I definitely remember mine. So like I said, I wanted to be a psychologist before I went to China, but then I got to China and day one, immediately day one, we're walking on this bridge, and behind us are all of these really tall buildings, and like surrounding me is just this entire new language and culture I had never ever experienced before. Um, I grew up in a small town with less than 1,000 people in it until I was 9, pretty
Wow.
much, and then I lived in San Antonio, and like so my experiences had always basically been the same. Um, but we were walking, and it was literally just the walking that did it. Looking at all these people, these new experiences, these new cultures, this language that I had never seen before. There was something in my brain that just went, "Wow, this is where I want to be." Like day one, it just it just clicked in my head. Like hours after it was like the first thing we did. Our bags were still on the bus, I think. Like it was just that was it for me pretty much. Like my brain just went, "Yep, this is where I want to be." And then the DC Sister Cities trip, it was that simulation that we did where my brain went, "Wow, you're actually really good at this." Like this is it was one of the first times that I myself felt like I had finally been good at something. I had very deep self-esteem issues, and like I knew I was good at things, but like I could never accept them personally until I did this simulation, and my brain was like, "Ha, you kind of rock at this," and I was like, "Wow, I do." Like I'm pretty good at this. Like negotiations and conflict analysis is my thing. Like it's what I do still now to this day. Um, and I've gotten incredibly good at it. I have a lot to learn, but I'm good at it. And so that was the thing that really clicked in my head. I wrote college essays on that simulation because I was like, look, like this is I have like this is I know this is what I want to do. I wrote all of my college essays, BTW, were on SOS.
Hmm.
I wrote SOS about everything. Like any college application had SOS thrown in there, because it
I'm
just
pretty
shaped my
sure
what.
I'm pretty sure I did the same thing.
Yeah,
So
like a lot of people I know did. They just like their college essays really like focused on SOS because it does change a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and it changed my entire career path. Like I got home from China at like, oh god, it was so late. It was like 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning. It was so late. And on the car ride home, like the first thing I said to my mom, like aside from hugging her, was like, I found what I want to do in life. And she was like, what? And I was like, I want to do international stuff. And she was a little shocked because like I didn't get passionate about things. I didn't get passionate about anything. But I was passionate about that. And then like the sister cities trips, like she noticed a change in me and what I did in my schoolwork. My grades went from me not trying and my teachers passing me because they didn't want me again to me like thriving. I graduated high school with a 4.0 somehow, and I'll never understand how.
Oh, wow.
um, but I did. I'll never understand it. But like after that China trip, like my grades turned around. My teachers noticed a difference in me. Teachers who didn't have anything to do with SOS would come up to me and they'd be like, "Aurora, are you like what's going on?" And I'd be like, "What do you mean?" And they'd be like, "You're happy. Like you smile in the hallways now." And I'm like, "Yeah, I found this thing. Like I found what I love." And so like everyone noticed that there was something that had changed because I found my passion. And that's my nice happy story.
That's so cool.
it's a good story.
Really good
Thank
story.
you.
It took me a little longer to find what I wanted to do, but also I found it on an SOS trip. Before the Germany trip, I had been pretty dead set on doing something I wasn't really into for money as well, because I knew um, shoot, I lost my train of thought. uh,
It's okay. Take your time.
Pom sci.
I'm gonna have to edit that out.
Doctor, right?
Yeah, no, I wanted to. So there's like a lot of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to do doctor, but also just for money, not really because I cared about being a doctor, which is exactly why you shouldn't do that. Um, and then I wanted to do comp sci, but because of money, not because I actually cared about it. But then on the Germany trip, when we were in Rothenburg and I got like lost in that little colorful city, and I was just taking pictures and taking videos and
Oh my gosh.
looking around and seeing all these like quaint little families living their lives, and then looking in the big square that they had all these SOS kids just taking photos and being mesmerized by everything. I was like, wow, I want to be able to capture this kind of stuff all the time. I could make myself happy and make a living by just picturing, like capturing the pictures or the videos of these genuine moments of people having new experiences and their life changed. And that's when I figured out I need to go to film school and I need to do something with this because this is where my heart is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that city really was beautiful.
It was like probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to.
I know, me too. Well, that's great. I really like it's incredible to think, just by going abroad, just by like participating in this program, like your entire lives have shift their course. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy.
wow.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
just like
the power of travel is like, something really strong. Like, I mean, I think, the same as Zoe and Aurora, like I wanted to like, be a doctor because it made lots of money because, people were like, "Oh, you should be a doctor." So like my entire life like I had been, I had, done science fair and stuff like that, not because like I wanted to, but because, it was like suggested that I do it. And then I remember it probably started on the England and France trip, but more so on the sister cities trip to Colorado. I realized like, I didn't really like the STEM field as much as I like the humanities and stuff like that. But it shifted my perspective, and it led me down like this path that am now. Like started doing Model UN, and I liked that, and started. I signed up for the next Sister Cities conference, which was a experience. Um, and
An experience.
yeah, I mean, the
An
power of
experience.
it's crazy. Like, I mean, it's changed. I feel like you can't like. I don't think anybody, regardless of how like set they are on their views, can go around the world and come back the same person.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Diego, I will say that Aurora and I got to experience literally the best Sister Cities conference that there ever was, and probably
Oh,
ever will be,
DC.
which
Yeah,
was DC.
you guys told me some really cool story. I mean, so Colorado, I don't know, you guys didn't go in Colorado, did you? Colorado was pretty cool too, but I think it was a little too like loose on the administration side, which is why like Houston like was completely shifted. But I heard some like really cool stories about Washington.
Yeah, no,
Washington, DC was, yeah.
was.
Didn't you guys get to like eat at like a consulate or something like that?
Yeah,
We got
we
to.
met the Japanese ambassador.
So
Oh, that was
Ooh,
We went to
cool.
his house and had dinner with him.
that's
that was the
awesome.
first time I'd ever had prosciutto.
Ooh, dang. Yeah, and then you guys had like the actual like flag ceremony, right?
Yep,
Yep,
Um,
we got to
that's
meet some amazing people.
we really did. It was the first time I met Ron Nuremberg before he was mayor.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, we met him before he was mayor. We met the Japanese ambassador. We heard from like three or four other ambassadors that were there. I
Oh,
at the dinner, like towards the end, when it was, I think it was the very last day because we had the dance party after.
oh
we
yeah.
got to
Um,
meet the mayor of Dublin when we were there too. She was awesome.
yeah, we met a lot of really awesome people on that trip. It was an incredible trip. Definitely the best that I could have imagined for Sister Cities.
That also helped. Actually, the very first SOS trip I've ever been on was the Sister Cities DC trip. But the first international trip that I had ever been on was the England France trip.
Wow. Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
had
don't.
just landed in China, from China, right?
Yeah, it was like the day. I don't remember exactly when, but it was literally like hours later. Like I don't even think I got a full day. I don't remember. My brain always says it's like hours later, but I'm like I think it was like 2 days later. But it was wild because time differences all over the place. Like China to Texas to DC. That's different time zones and like time everywhere. And I don't know how I survived that trip because I feel like I was exhausted, but I had so much fun the entire time that I didn't really have a chance to focus on like my weird sleep schedule.
Yeah, that sounds crazy. That.
It was. It was I have no idea how I did it, but it was amazing and I would do it again.
That sounds, yeah. I don't know how you did that either. I think my mom went through something sort of like that because and Zoe too, like, because the Germany trip was like a few days before
Yeah.
not like the day after, but it was a few days before the Sister Cities trip to Houston. So,
I think we had
that,
like 2 days of downtime, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
like
I
add
think so.
everything on top of, or add all that, like, lack of sleep on top of like the stresses of being a chaperone on top of the Houston conference itself must have been crazy. All right, guys. So I think we have one more question for you guys. Um, and it's about, how you think SOS has shaped you as a person. I know we've talked a lot about that, but maybe, how you think SOS has changed your life and maybe what you see yourself doing, in 5 or 10 years as a result of the experiences you've had with the organization.
Yeah, as we're doing this, I'm staring at a book, and it's called Inside the U.S. Embassy, and I got it my freshman year in college from an ambassador that works at my school, who also knows Amir Samandi, um, Ambassador Cragen, um, and like when I was in high school, before I found SOS, I would think about what I wanted to do aside from being the psychologist because I knew that didn't bring me any happiness. So I would like try every now and then to see, what I wanted to do, but there was just like nothing. It was just like a big hole of nothingness because I couldn't figure out what made me happy, what made me passionate, any of that stuff. And like I can clearly remember the day that after China, after the DC trip, after the Dominican Republic trip, like as I was filling out my college applications and I was thinking about where I wanted to go, like I remember sitting in, of all places, Amir Samandi's classroom in my student aid class period, filling out my college applications, and like it felt like the floor was falling out from under me because I could suddenly see like an entire future for myself. I could see myself working in an embassy, or I could see myself working for the State Department or Department of Defense. I could see myself doing all of these different things, and I can still see them. Like this is my senior year. I'm going into my senior year. I'm going to start grad school next fall. I'm starting grad school, and then I want to work in the government, in the State Department or Department of Defense. Like that's I know that's what I want to do. I'm gonna do it, but I didn't have that drive before. I didn't have that vision, and so like sitting there in that classroom, like with the man who kind of started it all from me, who created the organization, and then like didn't really give up on me. I was very standoffish, and Mr. Smandy has said it himself. Like he thought I didn't like him in the beginning because I was just standoffish to everyone. And like now we're really close, like I know I can go to him when I need advice or when I need help. And so SOS really took my life from being something that wasn't even worth living to something that I couldn't imagine not being around for it anymore. Like I couldn't imagine not being here doing this podcast or doing a project or having our meeting on Monday. Like these are things that I can't imagine not doing anymore, when before I couldn't imagine getting up for school or to go eat.
Hmm.
And so I in 10 years I see myself doing something incredible. I don't know what it is. I want it to be Middle Eastern related because that's my jam. I like to research the Middle East. And so yeah, I see myself doing something incredible in 10 years. Whatever it is, research, whatever it may be. It is international, political, related, and that is thanks to SOS and Amir Samandi and Mr.
That's all.
Cody.
Wow. Yeah, that's super cool.
It
What about you?
is. It's
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You can keep going.
no, you're fine. Go on, Zoe. I was just saying it is. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Like just
Um,
gives you some perspective.
yeah, when I first got involved with SOS, it wasn't something that happened overnight that, oh my gosh, my life just changed. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of trial and error and a lot of encouragement from my SOS family and Mr. Samandi, who became not just my teacher but my mentor. Um, if SOS hadn't if he hadn't and SOS hadn't come in, I don't know where I would be, but it would certainly not be anywhere good, or anywhere nearly, or I wouldn't be nearly as happy as where I am with my life. Um, I wouldn't probably have ever found out that I wanted to go into film, and that's where my passion was, and that's something that I'm really good at. So there's also that. I probably would have never gotten into college because, like Aurora, most of my essays for college were SOS essays that had to do with how it's impacted me, or the prompt of what is one struggle that you've overcome and how has it changed you, or whatever. SOS was definitely something I always used for those. Um, but in 5 or 10 years, I see myself as a fully functional individual here in New York. because that's where I currently am, and I'm not quite with my own place or anything yet, but I see myself at that level at the very least, but also hopefully going to film school and doing
Me.
something with that.
Yeah, and I can see both of you doing what you set out to do because I like personally through knowing you, you guys can do this. Like I believe in you.
Thank you.
And, another
Yeah.
thing that SOS has completely changed is my friend group and the type of people I surround myself with.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know what would have happened if I hadn't met Aurora, but when I met Aurora on the DC trip, I was like, "Holy crap! Someone that is like me, and we're going through it. We're doing it together, and we're changing together." And it was great to be able to make those kinds of connections with people.
Yeah, and I remember coming back after I had graduated. It was your senior year. I remember popping in to visit, um,
Yeah, I do
and
remember
we were sitting in the hallway outside Mr. Samandy's classroom just talking because, like, I had, the DC trip brought me closer to Zoe because I'd never known her, and then like we didn't get the chance to stay connected after that really until I came back until we started interning last summer together. But like in the back of my mind, I was always like, God, I hope she's okay. Like I hope she's doing well.
Yep.
It never left because I, like she said, I had found someone who was going through really similar things that I was going through, and like we were going on this trip together, and like changing actively in that moment with someone else is an incredible experience. And like growing with someone that you didn't know, but you almost immediately like felt connected to and understood, in ways that it's really hard to connect with someone because they don't know what you're going through and they can only empathize instead of sympathize, or whichever word fits where. I don't always remember. But like they don't know what you're going through exactly, but like Zoe did for in a lot of different ways, and it was something that I never would have found without having SOS.
Hmm.
We also quite literally got to see the before and the after with both of us
Oh
because
yeah,
when
oh for
we
sure.
first met, that was the beginning of our SOS journey, and then by the time that we saw each other again and reconnected, we were in the thick of it. We had already processed and changed and made things happen for ourselves for the better, and it was really great to be able to not just know that it works for you, but this is working for other people with just as hard, or if not harder, situations than you. This actually works. Like we got to see the physical of it as well, and it
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah, SOS really has the ability, Amir Samandi really has the ability to see a kid in a situation that's not good and be like, okay, I know this might not be your thing, picking up trash on weekends and cleaning up waterways at Bashura Bash, but it's gonna change you, and I know it will, and you need it. Like he in a much politer, less pushy way, he's just like, you need this. Here's this opportunity. And that one simple thing, like this one organization, one person being like, no, I see that you're struggling, and I see that other people have given up on you, but I'm not really one of those people. And this is not that kind of organization. Um, that just kind of like it changes your perspective, and it makes you realize that like, yeah, some people did give up, and some people told me I would never get into college. And my college counselor at school told me that I should apply for community college because that's all I would get into. And then, like, sitting down and writing these essays with Amir and my mom and all these other people, like, about this SOS experience and getting an amazing scholarship where I go, like, I wouldn't have gotten into college, but there were people who didn't stop pushing me even when I fought back against it and was like, no, I don't want to do these things. People were like, yeah, I know, but you need to. Like, this is what you need. And they were right.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Mandy is super impactful. Like, I'm not gonna like compare the struggles that I've had, to your guys', but everybody, struggles in their own way. And so,
Exactly.
and he's really good about, finding that. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do, career-wise last summer, or just in general. Like, I was lost, and he gave me an internship with him, and that really opened up my eyes to how much I love, business administration and stuff like that. And also, like, he's like a human fortune cookie. Like, everything he like says is just like, you know, spiritual like genius. Like, he told me, he's like, you're a saying that he likes to say is that you're the sum of like the four people that you hang out with most. And it made me really step back and think like, wow, I need better friends.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's crazy, Mr. Samandi, like, I don't know what it is like about him that allows him to do that.
Yeah, he's just such a pure person. Like he's like and all like 100% of him is like every fiber of his being is towards like helping others, which is incredible.
Yeah,
Like that, it sounds exhausting, but look at like what he's done and like how many people he's impacted.
And he has the ability to find other people exactly like that. The SOS team is filled with teachers who have full-time jobs and families, and they still make the time to make this organization run. All of
Mm-hmm.
them, all of the volunteers, and they're all volunteers. Like, no one gets paid to do any of this. No one is getting anything out of it other than like the good
Fulfillment.
feelings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's something I was going to mention is in school, all of the teachers generally, if they are an actual teacher, share the passion of wanting to spread knowledge, and they kind of have that, oh, these are my kids for the year. I need to make sure that they're doing okay in the class, but also like kind of mentally. But some of them, like I said, they don't all have that, and some of them will fall short. But Mr. Samandi and a couple other teachers we had that were also heavily involved with SOS, they don't fall short with that. If they see
Mm-hmm.
something going on, they want to help, they want to try and fix, they want to try and make sure that you are doing okay as a person. Because if you're not doing okay as a person, then how can they expect you to perform at school or anything else, really? And that's something that you can find in that tight knit community of people, is people that actually care and want to help.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's a great point to end on. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Um,
Yes. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for having us.
I know it was great.
Yeah,
I
we had a lot of fun.
do this more often, honestly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, good luck in all of your endeavors. And for all the listeners, tune in to our next episode, which should be coming out in a few weeks. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.